Hello, my name is Samantha Dotson, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters Democracy Team. As a high school representative for League of Women Voters We Vote campaign, I want to let you know how you can use the power of your vote in this fall's general election and elections throughout your lifetime. When the 19th Amendment passed in 1920, granting women the right to vote, the League was formed to educate women about this new right. Today, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that works to encourage the informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League advocates for all people to have voting rights regardless of gender or background. In this presentation, we are going to discuss the importance of voting, how to register to vote, and how to prepare and vote for this year's general election. We should care about voting because the people we elect matter in pretty much every aspect of our lives. Whether you are concerned about national issues like taking on college debt or climate change, issues that are center stage at both the national and state level like the response to the coronavirus pandemic, other state issues like the going rate for minimum wage, or even more local issues like standards for your high school education. Elected officials in either city or state government determine or influence the decision on many of these issues. So, how do we influence who our elected officials are and what they decide on our behalf? We vote. Throughout history, gaining the right to vote has been a struggle for many populations not classified as white males who owned property. Yet, only 1/3 of 18 to 24-year-olds vote. Voting is power. Every vote really does matter. In Kentucky, the 2019 governor's race was decided by less than 2 votes per precinct. Gen Z, which includes 18 to 24-year-olds, makes up 10% of the voting population, a powerful portion. Combined with millennials, you comprise over 1/3 of the total voting population. In addition to having potential voting power, young adults are showing more civic engagement. Increasing number of youth are signing petitions, following candidates on social media, and attending marches. Let's add voting to the list. Now let's talk about how you can register to vote, the first step in being able to use your voting power. You can register today if you meet the following list of qualifications to be able to vote in Kentucky. You might want to tell your friends. 17-year-olds can register to vote if they will be 18 by November 3rd. To be able to vote in the state of Kentucky, you must register to vote at least 28 days prior to the election. I want to remind you that the deadline for the November election is October 5th at 4 p.m. So let me show you how you can register right now. To register to vote, go to vote411.org, the League's one-stop shop for voting information. You will not only be able to register to vote, but you can also learn about candidates and find out about your polling location. To start, click on Register to Vote, then enter your email and zip code. After you complete the information form, you will see this screen. Choose the blue button that says Finish your voter registration online with Kentucky. The first pop-up box has information about dates and deadlines. Note these dates, then click OK. The screen will have information about the registration process. This essentially says that this online form is really an application. Only when this application is processed by the county clerk will you be registered to vote. The county clerk will send you a postcard confirming your registration, so you will want to be on the lookout for that. If you don't get a postcard, check your registration on govotekentucky.com. In very rare cases, like if you forget to submit your registration or your Wi-Fi signal dropped, you may have to repeat the process. Click Next on this screen. Choose I am registering in a high school registration drive. In the pop-up box, choose I am registering in a high school registration drive. Complete the information. Keep in mind you will need your social security number to register, so be sure you have that. If you don't have a driver's license, you can still register. You will simply need to sign your name using your mouse or the touchscreen. Try to make an effort to make your signature similar to how you will usually sign, because this is used for signature matching if you ever have a send-in mail ballot. Be sure to click Submit at the end. You want to make sure that you receive a confirmation of your registration. If you don't see this pop-up box, you may need to click this Submit button. Keep in mind that if you move, you will need to update your voter registration. even if you are just moving to another area of town. It is important to keep this information current. Your precinct may change, or you may not receive important mail from the county clerk's office, like voting information or your ballot if you have requested a mail-in ballot. If you are moving for college, you can still vote using your parents' address. However, if you are moving out of state permanently, you will need to let the county clerk know so that they can take you off the voter rolls. Take a minute right now to register to vote. Then come back. I have a lot more to tell you about voting after you get registered. Go ahead and stop this video and register at vote411.org. Now that you are registered to vote, let's talk about how you can exercise your right to vote. Because of the pandemic, voting rules are different than they normally would be for the general election. I'll help you figure out what will work best for you so you can be sure to have your voice heard. Since election information is changing due to the pandemic and it is different for each county, before we get into the specifics on how to vote, I want to let you know about a great resource so you'll always have a place to go to get up-to-date information. If you have any voting questions, vote411.org is a great place to start. This is the League of Women Voters one-stop shop for trusted voting information. At this site, you can get up to speed on coronavirus protocols, your registration status, a first-time voter checklist, and information about candidates. You can use Vote 411 to make a voting plan. You might have some questions about voting like, how will I cast my vote? Do I need an ID at the polls? When is the next election? What is on the ballot and who are the candidates? Or where do I vote and when? Vote411.org can help you get answers to all of those questions. As I mentioned, because of the pandemic, there are multiple ways to vote in an upcoming election, so let's dive right into those options. First, you can cast a ballot by mail. Unlike most elections this year, anyone will have the option to cast a mail-in absentee ballot because of the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the great things about voting with an in-mail absentee ballot is that you can fill out this ballot at home, and it gives you time to research each candidate while you are completing your ballot. Second, you can vote early in person starting October 13th. This is just like regular Election Day voting. You are just able to vote for several weeks prior to Election Day. Last, you can go vote in person on Election Day. Let's talk about the details of mailing in a ballot. This year, anyone can request a mail-in absentee ballot because of the coronavirus risk. This is the option that Fayette County Clerk is encouraging to help the election in Fayette County go smoothly. You can request a mail-in absentee ballot from vote411.org or govoteky.com. The deadline to request a mail-in absentee ballot is October 9th at 11:59 p.m. Mail-in absentee ballots must be postmarked by November 3rd and received by November 6th at 6 p.m. You also have the option to drop it off at one of the county clerk's drop boxes located around Lexington. I will show you a map of where those are located when we talk about polling locations. This is what KY Secretary of State's portal at govoteky.com looks like. Click on the top button to request an absentee ballot. Notice that you can also track your ballot, just like an Amazon package, by clicking the second button. When completing and assembling your mail-in absentee ballot, you must follow the instructions carefully to make sure that your vote will be counted. If a step is overlooked or the flap is torn off, your ballot may not be counted. First, you will bubble in your choices on your ballot using black, blue, or blue pen or a pencil. Be sure to vote for all things on the ballot. Check the back of the ballot to see if there's anything printed on the back you may have missed. Then you'll sign the inner and outer envelopes. The ballot goes into the yellow envelope, then seal the yellow envelope. Do not tear off the flap, however tempting it may be. Make sure you have signed the yellow envelope before placing it inside the white envelope. You will then need to sign the outer white envelope. Make sure this white envelope is also sealed. Then return the ballot to the county clerk either by mail or drop box. If you aren't very familiar with mailing letters, to have something postmarked on a certain day, you have to have it at the post office on that day. If you put it in a big USPS mailbox or your own mailbox, pay attention to the pickup times and make sure the mail pickup hasn't already occurred for that day, or your ballot may not be postmarked by this deadline. To avoid mail delays, the League recommends that you send in your ballot as soon as possible to assure it arrives on time. There are two other ways to vote in person this year. The first option is no excuse early voting. With early voting, anyone may vote early starting October 13th. Normally, to vote before Election Day, you have to have an excuse, like a medical condition or if you were going to be out of town on Election Day, like away at college. However, due to the pandemic, everyone can vote this way. Voting earlier will prevent long lines on Election Day and help with social distancing. This service will be available Monday through Friday and on Saturdays from October 13th through November 2nd. The hours will be 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Monday through Friday and Saturdays 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Unlike the primary, you do not need an appointment to vote early. There will also be in-person voting on Election Day. This will take place from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. at designated voting sites. Keep in mind that if you are in line by 6 p.m., they must let you vote. When you have time, talk to your parents about which voting method is right for you and your family this year. This is a map of the different locations for voting this fall. Notice that the locations are color-coded. Red for drop-box, blue for in-person voting only, and purple for both drop-box and in-person voting. There are 6 locations for in-person voting. An important thing to remember is that all these locations are voting supercenters where anyone in the county can vote. Normally, during an election, there's one specific place called a precinct where you have to vote. In this election, people have more flexibility on how and when to vote, but there are fewer voting locations. A new photo ID law took effect in July. The important thing is that your ID has your name and photo. Currently, the list of acceptable IDs are driver's license. It is okay if your driver's license is expired or has an old address. College ID or post-grad technical school ID. Military ID. An election official at the poll knows you by name. In this case, the election official will need to sign a form certifying they know you, so this may take a little extra time. If you do not have an ID, you can obtain a free state-issued photo ID card at the circuit clerk's office or one of the Kentucky Transportation Regional offices. A lot of offices issuing IDs were closed during the pandemic. If obtaining one of the listed IDs is not possible for you, for this election, you can sign a reasonable impediment declaration and show one of the types of ID that were required before the law changed. This is a list of all the types of ID you could show. There's an upcoming general election, and although Election Day is considered November 3rd, voting will be taking place from October 13th through November 3rd. We will have to wait for all the ballots to be officially counted to know who the winners are of all the elections. The final election results may not be available for a week or two after the election. Counting each ballot is a hallmark of our democracy and the only way to ensure a fair election. In every election, the election results are not official until about a week after Election Day, so this is similar to other elections. What is different about this election is that there will be so many people voting by mail that the candidate who is in the lead on November 3rd may not end up being the winner once all the votes are tallied and the election results are finalized. It would be like calling a derby winner as the horses come around the final turn. A lot can change coming into the final stretch. So now that you know about how to vote, you may be wondering all the things you will be voting on. You can find voting information at vote411.org that will show the specific races like council or school board in which you will cast a vote. This is a presidential election year, but there are also many other important offices on the ballot, such as U.S. Senate, U.S. House of Representatives, and local council and school board elections. There will also be 2 constitutional measures on the ballot. One is Marcy's Law and the other is about terms for judges and experience. You can find out more about these on vote411.org. To review the important points, if you decide to vote in person, remember, voting is easy. Voting is just like filling out a multiple choice exam. Be sure to check polling hours and locations. Do not leave the polling place without voting. If a problem comes up, ask election officials to help you. That is why they are there. Be sure to bring identification with you. Also, please be considerate by wearing a mask and practicing social distancing to help protect others. Familiarize yourself with your voting rights listed here should any issues arise. These websites are great voting resources. One I want to point out is Vote Riders, the last one on the list. Vote Riders is an organization that helps voters get the right ID needed to vote. One last thing, help the League of Women Voters get grant money to do more presentations like this. Join us on Outreach Circle and complete a survey telling us you voted. It takes less than a minute. This is also a place where you can find up-to-date voting information. Thanks for helping keep the power of democracy in the people's hands. This presentation was supported by a grant from the League of Women Voters Education Fund.